What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and we're back with more of The Grid. Thank you, as always, to Kim, who has provided a great deal of music, including The Grid's discography. And we're up to the next album, which is from 1992, and it's 456. When I looked at the album title, it made me think about musical beat counting. You often hear a music director or a choreographer even with 5, 6, 7, 8, or 2, 3, 4. I guess it's fair to say 4, 5, 6 is sort of in between those two more common verbal articulations of the timing and the beat structure. But yes, that's what I thought of. I wouldn't be surprised if there is some relevance in the sense that they make dance floor oriented tracks where keeping in time with the beat is part of the vibe and the atmosphere. But at the same time, I've come to understand that their tunes are indeed dance floor and techno or house or electro, and thus they don't always have full lyrics in the sense of multiple verses and a chorus. I feel like there has been maybe a few tunes like that, but others have been much more limited in the vocals, maybe even samples rather than sung vocals per se. So yes, I wouldn't necessarily expect this to be a concept album, but certainly my brain went to beats in time when I looked at the album title. In any case, the first track on the record is Face the Sun, which gives us an image and maybe even a feeling, which is further to say most folks will be familiar with that experience of turning your face up to the sun, feeling the warmth, feeling the bright illumination. And in that regard, maybe it could be about, facing that light, even if it is a bit overbearing and garish, not hiding in the shadows, but, being out there, visible, and with all the details or even imperfections that might be visible in that sun. At the same time, it could be maybe about the warmth, the, invigoration that you might feel. Not that we are plants, but obviously being in the sun gives you a sense of the energy and the power that it radiates. It could, of course, just be like a visual, just facing the sun, and the rest of the song is about a person that the narrator is with in this environment where they are facing the sun. So, yeah, it could be not so much the concept at the center of the song, but just the visual facet of it. Or, as I said, it might not really be any proper lyrics or narrative per se. Let's listen to it and find out. This is The Grid, the tune is Face the Sun, and it's the opening track on their 456 album. All the layers.
sound, not just what you call music. You know, like you have a sound body, a sound doctrine. You need to have a sound music. So I'm dealing with sound.
Fair enough.
But I'm talking about the cosmos. I'm talking about universes. I'm talking about omniverses. I'm talking about this planet will have to cooperate with other worlds now instead of just being isolated the way they have been. And that's what it is.
Making photocopies of something at the end there. So yes, it was very much another dance floor tune, not really with lyrics per se, although we did have what I assume was a sample of Turn and Face the Sun sung in a soulful manner at the end. But I especially love that vocal sample earlier, which was very like, Carl Sagan Cosmos talking about making connections to other universes, being part of an omniverse, and thus, living connected to not just this island, this singular entity, but a broader network of, communities or indeed entire universes. So yeah, that was really cool. Secondarily, I enjoy the early 90s feel. It really has an early 90s trip hop meets electro. I don't know if you'd call that electro, but definitely a trip hop kind of mellow house sort of vibe. Before it started doing that sample with that I think female vocal where it was loop, which the moment it came in I knew how it was going to loop, and indeed I was just thinking as it ended, I had a sense the way that it was going to cut out the beat, maybe extend that vocal, maybe still have those long sweeping ambient pads. Like the whole tune was very intuitive, which I always do enjoy. And, maybe in part that relates to my many years as a DJ of dance music, but I think when you write a song well, you can give listeners a sense for what's going to happen. Of course, it's like cool on both sides of the spectrum. It's cool to be surprised by a tune, but it's also cool when you kind of feel something coming and it happens that way. And so, yes, I enjoyed the early 90s electro or, mellow house trip hop vibe. And it actually reminded me, before that sample came in, it's the kind of track that you might hear in a Streets of Rage game, Streets of Rage 1 or 2. People might know I did a playthrough of number 2. I actually did a playthrough of number 3, but I didn't beat it. Whereas number 2, I had a nice run and I beat it. But yeah, the music in multiple levels of that game is kind of like the first, 3 or so minutes of this track. And I love the way it kept building in layers. Like, it started and it had that, like, those big ambient sweeps, and then in comes that, down tempo or like break house kind of percussive rhythm, and then there was like a quicker like synth sweep. Then there were these like cycling like keyboard riffs, like one that was kind of like way down on the lower end of the keyboard. So yeah, I like the way it kept building up the layers, and then as it really got into the tune, it was this really multifaceted sonic conglomeration or amalgamation. And yes, as I said, I enjoyed the vocal samples and also the chronology and construction of the tune. So yeah, a really good one. Looking forward to more of the album. Thank you again to Kim. And from Luca, you know what I'm going to do, Luca? I'm going to see if you want to go up to your chair. What are you thinking? Maybe? I think she's going to be happy with that. In any case, from her and I, have a good evening. Let me know what you think, and I will see you for the next one. Peace.